Hello and welcome to the FPL Scope. My name is Mathias, and like many of you, I'm considering using my wildcard this week, or potentially even next game week. But I look around at FPL content online and I see pretty much this exact squad or some slight variation of it in pretty much every single team that I get presented. So I figured it would be nice to look at some differentials. Obviously, these players right here are all either essential in some cases or perfectly good picks, but I kind of like to look outside the box to see if I can find like that one or two players that I really like and then gain an advantage from having them in my squad when most people are overlooking them. So let's first take a look at the three main options that I think you should consider. I think they are all really good, and yeah, let's just go ahead and look at them. And after looking at those three guys, we're going to look at some extra defenders, midfielders, and attackers that you might consider as well. Starting off, let's take a look at the player who was template pick pretty recently. That's Ollie Watkins. He was supposed to be like the third striker accompanying Haaland and Tony until Harry Kane got an extra fixture, and now everyone seems to be going back to Harry Kane after selling him for Darwin last week. Well, I didn't, but still. Anyways, Ollie Watkins is a great option. He's been amazing lately. He scored in 5 matches in a row, I think, and he's in the form of his life. And Aston Villa have really good fixtures, so it makes a lot of sense if you want to go with a different striker than the main three, Haaland, Tony, and Kane, to go with Watkins. But for me, I have another option that I like even more, and that is the guy to his right, Kelechi Iheanacho. I think he is amazing. Every time he starts, he's amazing in scores. He's proved that yet again. Even when they were knocked out in the FA Cup, he came on and scored like 10 minutes after he came on, and his underlying stats are amazing. These are just his last 4 starts. As you can see, Watkins and Maddison have taken their last 6 starts, but Iheanacho's only started the last 4 games because Brendan Rodgers apparently doesn't rate him, or didn't used to rate him at least, and benched him every single time, even though he scores every time he gets the chance. As you can see from the expected data for Iheanacho, it is amazing. 4 big chances in 4 starts, basically a big chance per game. 10 shots in the box and 4 chances created, a chance created per game, and then 2.50 expected goals index, goals and assists expected goals for Iheanacho. He's amazing. 6.2, only owned by 1.8%. I think that is great value. The one thing that Watkins has over Iheanacho is that he is nailed. Like, he's the main striker at Aston Villa. Danny Ings is gone. Watkins is getting so much playing time under Emery. He plays pretty much 90 minutes every game, whereas Iheanacho gets subbed off after like 60, 70, 75 minutes, because obviously Leicester have Vardy and Patson Daka on the bench to sub in for him. Meanwhile, Aston Villa don't really have a proper second striker. They have Duran, who comes on and plays on the wing. But still, that is the main key thing in Watkins' favor over Iheanacho, but I still think with the explosiveness of Iheanacho and also the fact that he's going to be even more of a differential than Watkins means that I'm kind of more tempted to go toward Iheanacho. Also, it should be mentioned, Game Week 29, which is probably the ideal point to bring them in. I think Iheanacho sort of outplays Watkins. The only option is if you're selling Haaland in Game Week 28, like a lot of people are doing, Watkins seems like a great option because he has Bournemouth at home in that fixture. Meanwhile, Iheanacho has Brentford away, so you can pick and choose between them, but I think both players are viable options. Even if you do a wildcard now, they're viable options straight away because Iheanacho has Southampton away and Watkins has Crystal Palace at home. So great options. The final guy on this page, James Maddison, probably my favorite pick out of every single differential option there is. Whenever he's back healthy and playing like he is now, hopefully. He provides FPL points. He's been amazing this season, as you can see from his underlying stats. Really good. In terms of points per match, he is only outscored by Rashford, and he's like on par with all the Arsenal attackers as well. So Maddison is amazing. And considering the fixtures that they have a double game week fixture in Game Week 29, and then across the board, easy matches. Brentford away is probably the toughest match. Chelsea, you never know with Chelsea. Maybe they sack Graham Potter, so maybe they get better, but that should also be, to be honest, right now, it should actually be like a dark blue match. It should be like one of the easier matches. But Leicester have been amazing lately in terms of creating chances. Of course, they concede a lot of goals, but that doesn't really matter for Maddison and Iheanacho. But for if you look at Iheanacho's numbers, for example, the last 4 starts for him are against teams like Spurs, Arsenal, and Man United. And then there's another match as well. I can't remember. I think it's Aston Villa. Yeah, they beat Aston Villa. But yeah. considering the tough matches that they had and then still producing those kinds of numbers, I think Leicester players are super overlooked in terms of the wildcard. So both Maddison and Iheanacho are pretty much players that I'm going to have at least one of them, or a third Leicester option, or potentially even a fourth Leicester option that I'm going to present to you after this. But those are the main three men: Maddison, Watkins, Iheanacho. I think they are the best differentials, to be quite frank, but I'm going to try to present some other players as well in defense, midfield, and attack, and see if there's anyone that tickles your fancy. So yeah, let's move on to the defenders. Looking at the defenders, the underlying numbers aren't quite as impressive as the last three guys that I presented, but I still think these three guys are really good options if you want to go with a cheap defensive option. Let's start with Castagne, who's the one out of the three who has been fit most of the season. And sure, he hasn't produced the best numbers this season, but as we know with Leicester, they started off the season conceding goals pretty much every game, and then they went on this huge patch of games where they kept keeping a clean sheet, and Castagne got a lot of points in FPL during that time. And what we know from Castagne from previous seasons as well is that he can score like a wonder goal every now and then. So he is the type of player that could all of a sudden score a great goal and potentially even get an assist. He's pretty attacking normally, and Leicester have obviously really good fixtures, as we just mentioned with Maddison and Iheanacho. So I think he is a viable defensive option. He's probably not the most favorite player to have because Leicester's defense is, quite frankly, pretty terrible. But you don't really know with Leicester because they face really easy teams in terms of defending. Obviously, you have Brentford, which is the toughest match. But other than that, they have Southampton, who rarely score goals. Chelsea, who have stopped scoring goals entirely. Crystal Palace, who, sure, they have Saha back at that point, but they still haven't been that good this season. And then Aston Villa is obviously a more difficult match in terms of keeping a clean sheet. They might beat them again because they recently beat them, like I said, with Iheanacho. And then Bournemouth finally in the final fixture in Game Week 30. Castagne has amazing fixtures, and yeah, that's probably the main reason you should get him. Also, he's a bit of a differential. Not many people have Leicester defenders. Well, obviously, he's a bit of a differential. He's in this video after all, but in terms of having Leicester defenders, I haven't seen a single... Well, some people have Ward, but I mean, just for good reason you don't have Leicester defenders. But if they turn it back on again, like they did previously in the season, then Leicester might be one of the Leicester defense might be one of the surprises of the upcoming few game weeks. But yeah, moving on, we have Mathias, who, like Castagne, has shown previously that he can score a lot of FPL points pretty quickly. I think it was about around this same time last year is when he started scoring and assisting pretty much every match. I think he had like a run of like 4 or 5 matches where he had like 3 goals and 2 assists or something like that, on top of keeping clean sheets and stuff. So Mathias can turn it on whenever, really. Aston Villa just played a match and won 2-0 against Everton. Mathias, he has back-to-back returns. He got a clean sheet against Everton and then against Arsenal when, to be fair, Aston Villa got completely obliterated by Arsenal. He still managed to get an assist. So it just shows that Mathias is someone who has been overlooked because he's been injured, obviously, but he's back healthy now, started the last 2 games. And yeah, he might be a really good option, as you can see from Aston Villa, like we saw with Watkins. Amazing fixtures still. Crystal Palace at home, Bournemouth at home, Nottingham Forest at home. Stand out. Double game week 29. They played Chelsea, who, to be fair, haven't really scored that many goals lately, but they played Leicester as well. So the double game week might not be the best. So, but he's like a bench boost option, I guess. But other than that, really good fixtures. He is an attacking fullback who can score and assist every now and then, even though he hasn't produced much this season because of injuries mainly. But yeah, Mathias, a great option. He is slightly more expensive than Mings and Konsa, but at the same time, he provides more of an attacking output as well, probably. So I think Mathias is a decent option. Finally, the main forgotten guy and potentially the most likely Chelsea defender I'd bring in is Wesley Fofana. He has also been injured, like Cash. Well, Fofana's pretty much been injured last season and this season, so that's the big issue with him. It's the injuries and the uncertainty about his minutes. I think he is the nailed like right centre back for Chelsea. He came on for Thiago Silva rather than Badiashile when Thiago Silva got injured last match, because Fofana plays on the right while Badiashile is competing with Koulibaly for the left spot. Fofana doesn't really have that many competitors on the right centre back spot. It is Thiago Silva mainly. And yeah, I think he should be pretty nailed going forward. And obviously he's not very highly owned because he's been injured for a while, and he's only 4.3, which is crazy for like a big team, supposedly big team, Chelsea. But yeah, 4.3 for a Chelsea defender is really, really good. So if you go with a different goalkeeper than Kepa, and you still want to have that Chelsea defense covered, and Fofana is a decent option as well. He even he even had a big chance in one of the past few games. So Fofana, pretty good pick, really cheap, and yeah, I think these three guys are obviously, you wouldn't have all three guys in your wildcard squad. You need to make room for your Gabriels, your Brighton and Brentford defenders. Potentially, I've seen a lot of people drop Brighton defenders just to go on a bit of a tangent here, but I think Estupinian is probably like my favorite defensive pick, considering like if he is healthy. But still, in terms of the differentials, you shouldn't go crazy and have all three. But I think having one of these guys as your final defensive option next to Trippier, Gabriel, Rico Henry, and Estupinian, for example, I think that's perfectly viable. Moving on to some more midfielders, we are yet again starting with another Leicester asset. If you can't tell already, I'm pretty high on Leicester compared to most other managers. So yeah, this is just another great option. If you can't afford Maddison, which is sort of the case for me and my ideal wildcard squad, I have to make some pretty huge sacrifices to bring in Maddison over Barnes if I want to do that. But looking at Harvey Barnes, and he actually has better underlying stats than Maddison, which is the crazy part. But of course, the last 6 starts, Barnes has better underlying numbers, but he has produced less FPL points because Maddison is more clinical than Harvey Barnes. That's like the main drawback with Barnes, is that he wastes quite a few chances and isn't that clinical, but he also sometimes gets into like a great patch of games where he just scores every game and assists, and I think he's an amazing option for that price. So if I can't afford Maddison, Barnes is definitely a good alternative, I think. And yeah, like I've said with Leicester, they are such a great attacking team, and with the great fixtures that they have, it seems like a really good option to have Harvey Barnes if you can't afford Maddison. So there are some other midfielders at kind of the same price point though that you can also consider. Obviously, Newcastle are pretty popular in terms of defense in the wildcard squads, but I haven't seen that many people mention Alan Saint-Maximin, who is back lately. He's also been struggling with injuries. Historically, he's getting injured quite a lot, but you can always hope that he plays a lot of games, and he might do going forward. And looking at the League Cup final, he was really active, really fun to play, really fun to watch, as I've listed as one of the pros for him. If you want to have fun with FPL, picking Saint-Maximin is probably one of the more, well, I say fun, but it's also kind of frustrating if you really care about the FPL points, because he is quite wasteful. He struggles with end product, but apart from that, he's a world-class player. Like, a lot of Newcastle fans have been saying that Saint-Maximin is like the main guy who could survive, like bringing in the Neymars and Mbappes of the world if they ever get to that point, Newcastle, with their rich owners. But Saint-Maximin has the top end potential to be like a main guy for a Champions League level team. So I think he's really good. Obviously, the fixtures for him aren't quite as good as the other options that I've mentioned so far. Newcastle don't have like the best fixtures. Obviously, they start with Man City away, which is a tough fixture. Manchester United in the double game week is also a tough fixture. Nottingham Forest has proven to be kind of difficult, and Brentford away, you never know. But at the same time, Newcastle are a really good team. They should be now, especially with Bruno Guimaraes potentially back. They should be even better going forward. The other thing with Newcastle is, as you've seen this season, with another historically wasteful player, Miguel Almiron, he was like the main FPL option to have at some point. And what's to say that same thing can't happen to Saint-Maximin on the other side of the pitch? And you don't really know with Newcastle. They're getting there's another forward I'm going to mention. I can just mention his name right now because it's pretty easy to tell. Well, it's not Callum Wilson. It is Alexander Isak, who will probably get into the team now. And who knows how that might affect Saint-Maximin. Maybe he gets more potential to score goals and get assists now with Isak up front rather than Callum Wilson. It remains to be seen. But he's a really fun option. He could be really explosive as well. He has these types of games where he gets 3 assists all of a sudden, and then he scores, gets an assist. So I think he's a really fun option if you want to go a bit risky with your last midfielder. And then finally, we have another double game week player that people haven't really talked that much about, and that is James Ward-Prowse. If you really want to maximize game week 27, if you want to bench boost in game week 27 even, Ward-Prowse is a great option because he has obviously a double game week. It's not the best double game week, Man United away and Brentford at home, but as we know with Ward-Prowse, he is kind of fixture proof because he gets mainly his points from free kicks and potentially penalties as well if he gets that. So yeah, he is listed with only one big chance in his last 6 matches, but as we know with Ward-Prowse, whenever he gets a free kick in like decent range, that is a big chance for him. So if he can get some free kicks and potentially penalties, he's going to score a lot of points. He usually brings home the bonus points as well because Southampton don't really have any other viable players other than him. So Ward-Prowse is someone who could also explode over the next few game weeks, even though the fixtures aren't as enticing as with most of the other players. And obviously also with Ward-Prowse, if you're wildcarding now, Leicester at home, they can easily score that in that game, and then he has the double gaming fixture, and then he plays in game week 28, unlike a lot of other players. So for those fixtures, you can keep him. Double game week 29, he only has one fixture. It is against West Ham, to be fair, but that might be also the point where you can sell him and bring in someone like Bruno Fernandes if you have the extra money left in the bank. So, or you can go with the team he's facing and get someone like Jared Bowen, who's also a great differential that I haven't listed in this video, but yeah, you can also, that's something you can do if you want to go super differential. You can have Ward-Prowse until game week 29 and then switch him to Bowen and have 2 different differentials players. But yeah, he's also a great option, I think, if you want to be a little out there and pick someone who is, to be fair, has been a pretty popular FPL option the last few years, at least at some points. Some people claim that he is so unreliable because you never know when he gets free kicks and penalties, and sure, that's true, but why not now? Why can't he get the free kicks and penalties right now? You never know. He has extra fixtures to do that in the first 3 game weeks at least, compared to most other players, apart from the Brentford and Brighton players and Crystal Palace players, who even I with the differentials are not considering a single one, because maybe Saha, but he's also still not back from injury, so who knows. But these 3 midfield options are decent as a final differential for your midfield. Finally, let's look at 3 more forward options. Obviously, I've mentioned 5 forwards already in this video. The 3 template picks, Harry Kane, Erling Haaland, and Ivan Toney. And then you have Iheanacho and Watkins as well, meaning that you have so many options for only 3 forward positions. But I think one of these guys potentially could be in your wildcard squad, or potentially brought in for like game week 29 or something in the case of Brendan Johnson, mostly. But I'm going to just start with Bryan Mbeumo, who is another Brentford option. Obviously, Brentford, they have the most matches in the next 5 game weeks compared to all the other teams. The reason people are not picking Mbeumo is because of Ivan Toney, of course, because Ivan Toney is a better striker, even though he's 2 million more in terms of price. He seems to be worth it because he's the penalty taker. He is the main man for Brentford, assuming he plays. So that's the thing with Ivan Toney. He has 2 potential suspensions coming. One of them is the yellow cards. He has 8 yellow cards, so if he gets to 10 yellow cards, if he gets a yellow card in game week 26, you're kind of screwed, because he might get a yellow card in the first game week 27 match, and then he only plays 1 match in the game week 27, and the whole point of him would be totally gone. So Mbeumo is sort of more safe in that regard. He is cheaper, and he's not going to get suspended. Obviously, the other suspension when it comes to Ivan Toney is the whole betting scandal around him. He's likely going to be banned for 6 months. It's just a matter of when he gets that ban. A lot of people are saying that it's going to be delayed until like April. His hearing is apparently most likely going to be in April. It's not confirmed that it's going to be in April, so there's still a chance that the hearing will be between game week 28 and 29. So he could potentially miss out the game week 29 fixtures, which is part of the reason why you have Brentford players, because they have doubles in both 29 and 27. But should Ivan Toney be suspended for either of these reasons, either for the yellow cards or because of the whole betting scandal, then Bryan Mbeumo would be probably the template pick to own if Toney was out. Because without Toney, Mbeumo has scored in both of the matches that Toney hasn't played this season. He would obviously be on penalties if Toney isn't there, and he's also just a really good option alongside Toney even as well. You could go double Brentford attackers, but like I said, with that many or that few forward options, or that few forward positions and so many options to choose from, it might not be the best to go with 2 Brentford forwards. So it's kind of a shame. Mbeumo was listed as midfielder last season. He's not this season. If he was listed as midfielder this season, he'd be probably one of the other template picks already. But yeah, he's been really good. He's actually outscored Toney lately as well. So he might even be better than Toney in terms of points going forward. But of course, you expect Ivan Toney to be the main man for Brentford as long as he's on the pitch. But who knows really if he's going to stay on the pitch for multitude of reasons. Moving on, we have another Newcastle attacker. I mentioned Saint-Maximin earlier, but I think Alexander Isak is an even better option. But obviously, you have the whole forward dilemma again, that you only have 3 forward spots, you have 5 midfield spots, so there's more room for Saint-Maximin. But in terms of keeping him long term, because obviously we're hoping that Newcastle have a double game week 31 fixture against Brighton and someone else. I can't remember exactly which team that is. But they are looking at potentially a double game week 31 as well. So you need to be, or should be, loaded up with some extra Newcastle players in your arsenal going forward. Isak, obviously, he is amazing. As you can see from him, his expected goals and his underlying stats, really, really, really good. 3.24 expected goal involvement. You have 5 big chances, you have 11 shots in the box, and you have 7 chances created. So he pretty much just does it all. As you can see from the League Cup final, he can create a lot of stuff as well. He's not just an out-and-out striker and goal scorer. He is sort of like a Harry Kane type who can play make and still score goals at the same time. So I think Isak has huge potential in terms of scoring goals. We still haven't seen fully what he's capable of in Premier League, but we've seen glimpses of it. He's obviously been struggling with injuries, but now he's back fit and ready to go. He looked really ready to go when he came on in the League Cup final, and I think he should be the starting striker for Newcastle going forward, even alongside or potentially like slightly to the side or slightly behind Callum Wilson. I still think Isak is a great option. Could potentially also be on penalties if Callum Wilson isn't on the pitch. So yeah, you can look into that as well. And he plays for a really good team. They have a double game week fixture in 29. They have a fixture in game week 28. And obviously the Wolverhampton fixture in 27 is also really enticing. So Isak is a great option if you want to go with a differential forward, of course. Lastly, we have Brennan Johnson. And the main selling point for Brennan Johnson is the amazing double game week 29 he has. Wolverhampton at home, leads away. Seems like a game week where he can score a lot of goals. He's shown to be quite explosive as well in a couple of matches previously in the season. He's really come into his own after starting the season off on the wrong foot, kind of, and he was sort of like, should he be benched? Should he not start for Nottingham Forest? But he's really picked up lately. Amazing young player. He's going to be a good FPL option, I think, for the next 7 to 10 years probably. So why not start now? He could be a really good option straight away. He has Everton at home in game week 26, great fixture. He has a tougher fixture in game week 27, Spurs away, but as we know, game week 27, there's a lot of double game week players most of you guys will have, and there's a lot of good players apart from that. So it's not that bad to bench him for 27 as well. You can just bench him and have all the other main options in 27. I've seen a lot of game week 27 squads, and the issue is the bench is too good, so Johnson against Spurs away on your bench, fair enough. You can do that instead. Then Newcastle, he has a game in 28. It's a home game as well. Nottingham Forest are really good at home, so who knows what could happen against Newcastle in that game. And then obviously you have the double game week 29 and a decent game week 30 as well for Brennan Johnson. Underlying stats not as good lately, but you never know with Johnson. He can turn up all of a sudden. He scored 2 goals in the same match earlier in the season. So yeah, I think he's also a great option. That concludes all our differentials. I have presented 12 differentials, so that's almost a full squad of players. I also mentioned Jared Bowen. You also have the likes of Emerson Royale I considered for Spurs. He doesn't have a double game week fixture, but he's also shown to be a really explosive option lately. It's just a matter of if Pedro Porro might take over his spot in the Spurs team, but if Emerson Royale plays, he's also a great, fantastic differential option. Obviously, I haven't mentioned any goalkeepers. Most people are going with Raya, Sanchez, or Kepa, or some variation of all of them. You can also mention Keylor Navas from Nottingham Forest as well. As you can see, the good fixtures, and you only need to play. That's the beauty of the goalkeepers. You can switch between the 2 goalkeepers you have, so you can play Keylor Navas in game week 26 and game week 29, and then you can play your Brighton, or not Brighton, because they have. Well, you can play Navas in game week 28 when Brighton have a blank, and then you can play Brighton with the double in game week 27. So, and bench boost in 29 if you have Keylor Navas. So that's another good goalkeeper. There's also some more West Ham players. I'm a West Ham fan, so I know quite a bit about West Ham, of course. But Alphonso Areola is back. He's starting now for West Ham because Fabianski got a facial injury. Not quite sure how long Fabianski is out for at the moment. It seems like it's going to be 3 or 4 weeks, but at the same time, Areola might just outplay him and become the starting goalkeeper. A lot of West Ham fans, myself included, are hoping that Areola will take over as the number 1 goalkeeper. I think for all that Fabianski has done for us, both in FPL and in Premier League in general, and for West Ham, he is slightly coming towards the end of his career now, and Areola is the future goalkeeper for West Ham, so he might be the starting goalkeeper going forward as well. So yeah, that's a couple goalkeepers as well. You can make a whole wildcard squad out of all the players that I've mentioned. I don't think you should do that, but I think one or two or potentially even three of these guys that I presented you can have in your wildcard squad, and it can still be perfectly viable even with some players left out of the Twitter template sort of team. But anyways, I hope this video was somewhat interesting to you, looking at some different picks. I know I'm quite bored looking at the same arguments about the triple or the three Brighton midfielders, who's the best out of the three Brentford defenders, who's the best. Like, just pick one and they're pretty much the same. Of course, it's going to be a lot of variance. That's mainly where the points differences will come going forward in terms of the wildcard. It's going to be which Brentford defender and which Brighton midfielder you select and how many. But anyways, this has been the differential video. Please like and subscribe if you can, or if you want to, if you find this informative. And now I'm rambling, so I should probably quit talking.